Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Yesterday we were talking about Parasuram, and today we're going to talk about Parasuram, but from another portion of the Bhagavatam. Yesterday we had spoken about Parasuram's father, Jamadagni, and how he wasn't pleased with the fact that Parasuram had killed Kartavira Arjuna for stealing the Kamadhenu cow. Parasuram was born in the family of Brahmins, but he had Kshatriya spirit, and his father said, we're Brahmins, so as Brahmins we should forgive. But it's interesting to note that there's a verse, and it's in my little book here, but I didn't take time to find out where it's from. But Shastra says Kshatriyas are also forgiving, and we explained that yesterday, that they fight on the basis of dharma. They don't fight out of revenge and anger generated from the mode of ignorance. Hate the sin, not the sinner. That's the idea. So yesterday we discussed how Parasuram had committed a sin. Now, there's another aspect to the story, and Krishna teaches many things within one story. So within this story, Krishna was teaching that we should be forgiving. At the same time, there's another lesson, and the lesson was that Kartavira Arjuna did the wrong thing, and Kartavira Arjuna was proud because he was very strong, and he felt that he was actually more powerful than anyone. So the killing by Parasuram of Kartavira Arjuna was to subdue his pride. So that's another lesson. So in one sense we get the lesson that he should have forgiven him. So in the aspect of teaching dharma, yes, and as an example for us. And then, from the point of view of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose position is to rectify, chastise as necessary, Parasuram is chastising Kartavira Arjuna, or subduing him by killing him, subduing his pride by killing him. So we learn that lesson, that we shouldn't be proud, because every time a devotee becomes proud, or often when a devotee becomes proud, Krishna does something to curb their pride. In this case, he was killed. That seems like quite a punishment for being proud. But Kartavira Arjuna was very proud, proud to the point that he was dangerous, and dangerously demoniac. So that's the other side of the story. So many things are taught. Now, today I want to read something which we had touched upon yesterday, but it's found in the Bhagavatam, and I always think it's important when we're discussing something that if we can get a reference from the Bhagavatam as a story exactly about particular anartha that we have, then it's very valuable. We have stories in our own life about mistakes, but hearing the mistakes of others and how they responded to it is very valuable. And although you may not realize it, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but the Bhagavatam has many, many stories of people making mistakes, the same mistakes we make. And so we learn from their mistakes. The Bhagavatam is just not about pure devotees. It's about very conditioned people who make mistakes, but also they rectify their mistakes. So one of the ways we learn from the Bhagavatam is through reading stories about people doing the wrong thing, and then eventually coming to understand what they did was wrong, and then dealing with it. We do many wrong things, obviously, and we're not always aware, but Bhagavatam gives examples of people doing the same wrong things we do. So sometimes it's nice when we're reading the stories to consider, well, can I relate to this story? So now we're going to read another story perhaps you can relate to. This is the third canto, 8th chapter, and it's text number 9. Three, 8, 9. I'm going to read. If you want to read along, you can find that. Actually, I thought it was 3, 8, 10. I had it written in my book. I have to correct that. It's 3, 8, 9. On the folio, at the bottom, often at the bottom, if you take out a section and paste it somewhere at the bottom, there'll be the verse number, but the verse number is actually the next verse. So that's why I thought it was 3, 8, 10. I had written down 3, 8, 10. It's 3, 8, 9, because 3, 8, 10 was posted on the bottom of the quote. I don't know if that makes sense. If you go in the database, you mark something, you save it, copy it to Word, and then it'll give you the reference, but the reference is always for the next thing which you didn't save. For some reason it does it that way. So if you ever do that and you see there's a reference there, Srimad Bhagavatam 3, 8, 10, what you pasted was actually 3, 8, 9. Someday maybe you'll understand what I'm saying when you actually do that. Here's the verse. The great sage Parasara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulasta, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. So that, we don't really need to understand the context of this, but the general context of Bhagavatam is being spoken and passed down. But in the purport, it's very relevant. What's discussed in the purport is very relevant to yesterday's discussion. The great sage of the name Pulastya is the father of all demoniac descendants. Once upon a time, Parasara began a sacrifice in which all the demons were to be burnt. Were to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them, his father Jamadagni. The great Vaishishta Muni arrived at the sacrifice and requested Parasurama to stop the deadly action, and because of Vaishishta's position and respect in the community of sages, Parasuram could not deny the request. In other words, his father was killed, and rather than retaliate against one person, he decided, well, he would kill all the demons. And eventually he killed the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas, but he had a reason to kill the Kshatriyas, they had become degraded. So this was kind of his mood. He had this Kshatriya spirit. For the offense of one, he would kill many. But herein we learn that when Vaishishta became aware of this, then he asked Parasuram not to do this. For the offense of one, don't kill all of them. And because of Vasishta's position, the Parashurama had to accept, or he did accept, or both. Had to and did and had to. Parashurama, having stopped the sacrifice, Pulasta, the father of the demons, appreciated his Brahminical temperament and gave the blessing that in the future he would be a great speaker on the Vedic literatures called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parashuram's action was appreciated by Pulasta because Parashurama had forgiven the demons out of his Brahminical power of forgiveness. So it's interesting because Parashurama, there's a story, anyway, there's a reason that he has this Kshatriya spirit. But he's actually a Brahmin, but he's exhibiting this Kshatriya spirit. And Pulasta, who is a demon, interestingly, is understanding this and appreciating that Parashurama does have the power to kill them, but he didn't, he forgave them. And he's appreciating that he's living as a Brahmin. He's got this Brahminical quality of forgiveness, and he's appreciating it. And which shows that even someone who is not a devotee, maybe they don't even believe in God, they can also appreciate the value of forgiveness, especially when you're forgiving them. So Pulasta's whole family was saved by the forgiveness of Parsuram. So he's obviously appreciating it. And Prabhupada says here, as we read yesterday, that Pulastya appreciated Parsuram's Brahminical quality or Brahminical power of forgiveness. What does he say? Brahminical power, yeah. So this is nice because forgiveness is not a weakness, it's a power. Humility is not a weakness, it's a power. Tolerance is not a weakness, it's a power. So it's important to see it as a power because sometimes we think, well, if I'm forgiving, then I'll be taken advantage of. It's always a power. You have to know how to deal with the power so that you won't be taken advantage of. But it's a power because it requires such a level of, how should we say it? Basically, detachment, renunciation, sense control, compassion, tolerance, and so forth. It requires so many good qualities to forgive that therefore it is a power of the individual, and it gives the individual, when the individual does it, it gives them power also. Parsara, it's not the friend of Narada, that was Parvat. Parsara is different. Okay. Parashara was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered, quote, demons are so made. Now listen to this. This is the point, the real point that I wanted to discuss. Demons are so made that they devour living entities, men and animals. But why, on that account, should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? That is, we talked about this yesterday. But this point is extremely important, extremely valuable, because in life we tend to be degraded or become degraded by the actions of others. So the thinking of Parasurama should be how we think. Demons, not exactly in the specific way, but the general principle. Demons are so made that they devour living entities, men and animals. But why on that account should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? In other words, it's the general principle he's saying. If somebody acts in a demoniac way, or acts improperly, or sinfully, or does the wrong thing, why should I then retaliate? As in this case, Parsurama is thinking, because of the action of these, the sons of Pulastya, or the descendants of Pulastya, because of their action in killing my father, I will kill all of them. So then he gets the sense that why should I degrade myself because of their degraded activities? So that's the point. And it's a beautiful point. And the reason it's beautiful is because this happens to us all the time. We allow ourselves to be degraded because of the degrading actions of another person. People upset us by what they do, by what they say. Sometimes we want to retaliate in the same way that they have harmed us. We want to retaliate with the same demoniac force and nature. So he's saying, I'm a Brahmin, and Brahmins do not act this way. So why should I degrade myself into acting like the sons of Pulastya? Give up my Brahminical power of forgiveness and act like them. Very, very important problem. Yeah, it beeps because they want me to sign in to something and I don't have a password and it just keeps beeping. So I tried to de-beep it. I don't. Okay. I think it's just going to beep. And later I have to find my password, my Samsung password, put it in, and security test or something. Okay. Demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why, on that account, should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? In other words, Why should I degrade myself because you're degraded? Why should I allow myself to not act on the principles that I value and believe, or Shastric principles that are given to me, because you don't, or because somebody doesn't? And so, think of this. You look at society, you look at the world, and because people are sinful, it tends to what's the word I'm trying to say? Rationalizes. It's a word, it's not the best word. It tends to make us, it can tend to make us think that something is not bad when it is bad because everyone's doing it, and then it seems to be common. It doesn't seem to be. It's common, and because it's common, then common means it's okay. So why should I degrade myself simply because everybody's doing something which is wrong? In other words, we have our Shastra, we have the instructions of our Guru. So sometimes we can be incited to act in a contrary way to the instructions of Shastra because someone else is acting that way, and because they're acting that way, then we think, well, we have a right to act that way, or because society in general values something that's not Krishna conscious, we might think, oh, we can act that way. So what's happening is that those activities are degrading us. We're allowing ourselves to be degraded by the actions of others, by others' degrading actions. So Parasuram is saying, why should I act like they're acting? That wouldn't make sense. Why should I give up my integrity? Why should I give up my self-respect? Why should I give up the instruction of Shastra, the instruction of my Guru? Simply because someone else is not acting properly. And then allowing myself to be enticed to retaliate. Rather, I should just neutralize it by my forgiveness. Forgiveness is neutralizing. When we don't want to forgive, that means we want to retaliate. When we forgive, we neutralize the desire or the need to retaliate. And the idea here, I don't think we can stress it enough because it's so important. The idea here is, I have my values. This is what my life is based on. And I'm not going to compromise my values because someone is mistreating me. I'm not going to allow myself to become envious or resentful or angry because of the action of another. And we do it all the time. All the time. This is a huge problem. And if we're meant to live in integrity with Krishna consciousness, we have to live according to the principles that are right, not being affected by people or situations. Super important point, because this is just reality. And I like it so much because here is reality that we face every day, and Parasuram is facing it. And he's having to deal with it. And he comes to the right conclusion, even though he was ready to kill them all. So he had that desire. That's what's going on here. It's like, someone upsets you and you're ready to lash back at them, and then you think, wait a minute, this person mistreated me. Why should I mistreat them just because they mistreated me? I'm a Brahmin. I'm supposed to be kind, understanding, forgiving, and so forth. That's the thought. So then the rationale, as some of you are thinking, yes, Prabhu, but I'm not a Brahmin. Well, I have a Brahmin thread, but I'm not actually a Brahmin. Well, you're supposed to be, and you're being trained to act that way. So don't try to wiggle your way out with some excuse. But realize the import of this story is you're given instructions how to act, and we are not supposed to allow the actions of others to dissuade us from acting the way we're supposed to be. Or a better word, I would say, is to degrade us. Or a better way of saying it is to degrade our soul, to degrade our Krishna consciousness. We should not allow another person's actions to degrade our Krishna consciousness. So that's a huge challenge we have. Yes? Yes, it's quite a constant challenge. Let's finish the purport. As the great speaker of the Puranas, Parashar is now, he's in this position where he's going to be speaking the Puranas. The story that led up to this verse is about how the Bhagavatam Puranas were being passed down. And now they're passed down to Parashurama, and he was, because of his forgiveness, he was actually blessed that he could speak. That's another interesting point. He was given blessings because of his forgiveness to be the speaker of Bhagavatam. So, As a great speaker of the Puranas, Parashar first of all spoke on the Srimad Bhagavad Purana, because it is the foremost of all the Puranas. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he had heard from Parashara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from superiors. So Srimad Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasadeva. So-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually the Puranas existed from time immemorial, before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. So this is taking place long ago, long before Vyasadeva spoke the Bhagavatam. So that's interesting. It's an eternal scripture because the Leelas are eternal. And the Leelas happen in different ages, different cyclic ages. So it's not that the Bhagavatam is just spoken after the fact. But these things, you could say spoken after the fact in the sense they happened in other ages. They haven't yet happened in this age. And they're spoken about again. And sometimes it's before they're going to happen, and sometimes it's after. And sometimes when it's spoken after, it could be spoken of another another period of mano. And so it happens a little differently. And sometimes in the Bhagavatam you'll see a story is described slightly differently in different places, or told differently at different times, because it happened differently in slightly differently in different millenniums. So, I'm going to go to your comments and questions, because that was the main point I wanted to make. Main point for you to meditate on is how the actions of others affect your actions, and how that sometimes we allow others' anger and others' upset to upset us, rather than for us to be, sober, balanced, kind, considerate, etc. And so, yeah. Radhika says, I think we rarely consciously want to retaliate, but we fail to control the senses. Till you snap back, oh no, I did it again. I lost my composure. I could offer a solution, at least in my consideration of this problem. And my consideration is that ultimately, if we act that way, we could blame it on so many things. And I'm not denying the fact that we're conditioned souls. I'm not denying the fact that we're sometimes under the modes of nature. But I would go a little deeper to say that we're allowing that to happen. Like the saying, I don't know if I gave you this saying before, but I've been using it in different workshops. You get what you tolerate. So, Radhika, if someone does something and it upsets you, or someone says something and it upsets you, and you snap back, that means you're tolerating your anger. Tolerating your anger meaning you're allowing yourself to be angry. I don't mean you're tolerating it and not being angry. You get what you tolerate. So you tolerate the fact that you allow yourself to snap back. Whereas if you decided that that's not the way you want to live, then you wouldn't snap back, because you get what you tolerate. So I will no longer tolerate. I want to change this. Now I know that sounds easy and simple, but the fact is, we have to want to be a certain way. We want to have to act in a certain way for us to be able to control those emotions, because it's not that you won't feel like snapping back. It's just that you won't. It's going to take time to not feel like snapping back, although it could be done very quickly. But let's say, for the sake of discussion, someone's going to mistreat you and you're going to feel like snapping back. But my point is, if you value or respect Well, let's say if you value the respect of others, you will prevent yourself from snapping back. Because even though you feel like it, simultaneously you will feel bad to do it because it will feel wrong to you, because you have connected that snapping back, that anger, with something very bad, something very demoniac, something that you want to purify, something you don't want to carry with you. Now, if you connect with it deeply, then when you're impelled to do it, you will catch yourself because it will be distasteful for you. So that's the stage in which your conditioned response is not yet purified and you feel like reacting. But because you value respecting others, you won't, even though you feel like it. Yeah, so the problem could be resentment. The problem could be anything. But you, at this point, when you come to a point where you no longer want to be a resentful person, even though the resentment is there, you work on it so you don't act it out, because you know that it's wrong and you just don't want to do it. You've made that decision so deeply within you that it now almost becomes impossible to act that way. Like, for example, you cannot eat meat. It's impossible for a devotee to eat meat. They can't do it, because the depth of that conviction is so deep, and the experience of the sin, the understanding and experience of how sinful that is, makes it impossible for us. Even, we don't want to eat meat, but even if we did, it would be impossible. So use that as an analogy or as an anchor point for anything that you want to give up. That if you can anchor within you the consciousness of how sinful, wrong, bad it is to do this, you will find it so much easier to prevent yourself from doing it. And eventually, the desire to snap back or the reflex action to snap back, it won't be there, because you have a different way of acting. So if the problem is resentment, then the solution is forgiveness. And so then you would have to anchor in the beauty, the power, you would have to anchor in forgiveness into your psyche, into your consciousness, in a way that it becomes extremely important for you to always be forgiving. And when you come to that level, it's automatic. You will automatically forgive. You won't even have to fight it. It'll just become how you are. But until we anchor that in, then there's some rationale in our mind or some benefit we're getting by being resentful, or some, as we're saying, look, I can be resentful, look what they did. I still think I have a right to react that way. And that's the problem. You may have a right to react that way, but as a devotee, you don't have a right to act that way. As a non-devotee, okay, you have a right to react that way. You were harmed, so karmically, tit for tat, you have a right to react. But as a devotee, you don't have a right to react. Unless another devotee is being harmed, then you have a right to react. But you don't have a right to react on your own account, because as a devotee, you're guided by Brahminical principles, and forgiveness is a Brahminical principle. So if you anchor that into your consciousness deeply, if you anchor into this idea that resentment is demoniac, it's tamasic, it is not meant to be in the life of a devotee, and that I will never allow anyone to degrade me to that platform. And you anchor that in as something that is so important for you. It is at that point you're going to be able to control it. And so this is just my theory. You can accept it or not, but this is based on my experience in my own life in helping others overcome problems. That the real problem is that we don't care that we have the problem. And that's why I say you get what you tolerate. So you have this problem that you're snapping back, and you do it again and again. I'm not saying you do it, but theoretically, if you do it again and again, you are tolerating the fact that you're losing it. It doesn't bother you. And you might say, no, it does bother me. But I'll say, if it did bother you, you would stop it. You are tolerating yourself snapping back. That's what you're tolerating. If you come to this point where you will no longer tolerate yourself snapping back, on that day, I can guarantee you, Radhika, you will not snap back. I'll make that promise, 100% guarantee. If you can come to that point in your own consciousness, that this is wrong, I don't want to live this way, I don't want to be this way, it's disrespectful, it's against what Prabhupada wants, it's against Shastra, it's against what my gurus want. If that realization becomes an emotional response, not just a in your head response, but it becomes an emotional response. You feel disgust for it. I don't want to be this kind of person anymore. And it's an emotional experience. Then things are going to change. If it's an intellectual thing, maybe not. But if it's actually experienced, I don't want to be this way. This is wrong. This is not the way Prabhupada wants me to be. You feel that strongly. At that point, if it becomes distasteful to you, at that point you will not tolerate it anymore. You'll say, I cannot tolerate this. So in that sense, intolerance is what is needed. In a situation like this, we don't want to tolerate a bad quality. We want to become intolerant to the bad quality. So intolerance is good. And so if I can come to this point where I am intolerant of my own weakness, in this case, my own anger, if I'm intolerant of my own anger, then I won't allow myself to become angry, even though I feel like it. Right now, I feel like it. But it's not the way I've chosen to live anymore in my life. I have become disgusted by living in the mode of passion and ignorance. I will no longer live this way. It disgusts me. It turns me off. So even though you do something to upset me, I would never react with the same anger that you've shown to me, because it goes against the integrity of how I've chosen to act. So if you can get yourself to come to that level where this is the person I am, this is the person I want to be, this is the person I've chosen to be, and I will not let any situation or any other person cause me to act any other way, then there's no more snapping back. You're no longer bound by your conditioning. You've neutralized it by your own integrity. You've neutralized it by giving priority to what is right, and not and within your own life, within your own heart, coming so deeply to this level of that I will not allow others to degrade me by their actions, that I will always do what I know in my heart is right, when I know in my heart is service to Guru and Krishna. I'll always do that. Then you're good. Now, will you slip from time to time? Maybe slightly here or there, but you'll recoup immediately. Immediately, instead of 3 hours to apologize, it'll be 3 seconds. This is my experience. It will not take 3 hours for you to calm down and realize what you did. You'll immediately go, I'm out of integrity. Immediately. Why did I do that? 3 seconds later, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You will accept it. You will accept your mistake internally. Yes. So now you're probably asking, well, how do you imbibe that on such a deep level? I think it's going to be different for all of us. But one of the things, at least I've found in my life, is that we actually have to come to a point in our life where, let's say if we're talking about forgiveness, where it becomes attractive to us. It becomes a profound state that I need to be in. This is important to me now in my life. No longer do I want to be resentful. I don't want to live another day in resentment. That forgiveness is now the way I'm choosing to be, because it's the right thing, because it's shastric, it's dharmic, it pleases Krishna. There may be a whole list of reasons, but now those reasons are making sense. Those reasons are resonating with you. Those reasons are having an emotional experience for you. Like yesterday we said, one of the reasons to forgive is because it pleases Krishna. So okay, that makes sense. But just because something pleases Krishna, there's so many things please Krishna that we don't do. So it may have no emotional content. But if it has an emotional content, yeah, I should do this because it pleases Krishna. And that's the most important reason. Actually, I don't even need another reason. Krishna wants me to do this, that's it, I should do it. And if that reason becomes so powerful for you and has emotional energy, emotional context, then you can do it. But if it doesn't, it's like, yeah, I know, but, and you'll have all your buts, and all the buts are all the reasons you don't do it. And you'll surround yourself with a fence of buts to protect your false ego, so you can feel okay about not doing it and rationalize it. But that doesn't work. It's better you take down the fence and feel bad about not doing it, because that can motivate you to change. When people put up fences and rationale and protect their ego, all they're doing is keeping the problem intact and rationalizing it. But if you pull the fence down, pull the ego down, then you can actually deal with the problem, because you'll feel like crud when you think about the problem. And that feeling like crud makes you realize what I'm doing is wrong. That's how you know it's wrong, because of how you feel. But if you put up this fence and rationalize it so you don't have to feel it, then you don't change it. That's the problem with not feeling, because feelings are there to edify us. So if you do something, you snap back and you feel really bad, that's good, because that bad feeling is going to rectify you. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. It was the wrong thing. I always do this. I have to get this under control. I never want to do this again. That's what the emotions will tell you. But if you put up a fence, oh, it's his fault, he always does that, he deserved it, then you have no emotional experience to rectify it. And then you just rationalize it and you'll keep doing it. And that's what a lot of people do. Isn't it? You agree? Isn't that what a lot of people do? They rationalize behavior which they should correct. So they're tolerating the wrong behavior. So you get what you tolerate. If you're okay with the wrong behavior, you're going to continue doing it. So the change comes when you stop tolerating it. I can't tolerate acting. This is not right. Prabhupada doesn't want me to do this. This is wrong. This is disrespectful. Whatever it is, when you come to that point where it's just like, that's it. It becomes an emotional experience. And when you say that's it, when there's emotion, that's when you change. Yes? That's how you stay in integrity. Yes, Maitreya. Maitreya knows. We have to respect others. You know what's a good exercise? A good exercise is you look at a problem you have and then draw like a pole and think, well, what would be the emotions getting to the opposite of that emotion? So here you could say respect is either the opposite end of the pole of the emotion of resentment, or it's on the way, or in this case, not with snapping back, anger. Yeah. So I get angry. Why? Lack of respect. So if you want to replace that action, you need another action or another attitude. So you can focus on, in this case, you could focus on respect. So instead of snapping back, I will respect people. That's where I want to live. That's important to me. It's become so important to respect people. It's I can feel the need for it emotionally. And then when I'm tempted to snap back, I show respect. Even if I have to correct the person or something has to be done to remedy a situation, it's done respectfully. So there's no snapping. It's done politely, respectfully. We devotees rarely retaliate physically, but we tend to keep bad emotions or resentments. Yeah, maybe we should start beating people up. That might help with us. And we sometimes even enjoy seeing the person who hurt us, offended us, suffer. Yeah, but you have to understand what that is. That is a demoniac tendency, which we brought into Krishna consciousness. And so those demoniac tendencies are meant to be purified. So if you see a demoniac tendency, don't rationalize it and say, well, look what that person did. What do you expect? Anyone would act this way. No. Any ordinary person would act that way. But we're trying to not be ordinary. We're trying to be devotees. So we can't just say, well, anyone would act that way. That in itself shows the problem, that I'm acting like anyone instead of acting like a devotee. So rather, we're supposed to see, okay, here's a difficult situation. Okay, now Krishna has put me in this difficult situation, so it's an opportunity to now either act like an ordinary person and do something or say something wrong, or say or do something offensive, or act like a devotee. It's an opportunity. That's how we have to see it. Life is full of opportunities. And every opportunity we fail, we go back to zero. Now we have to start, I could have progressed. I could have overcome this problem. I could have come a little closer to Krishna, but I failed. So now I go back to the start. I made this progress. I failed. I go back down. As we say in English, you go back to zero, right? You go back to square one, where you started from. Yes. Does that make sense? So think of every difficulty as an opportunity that Krishna has placed in front of you. And you don't want to miss the opportunity. Excuse me. You don't want to miss the opportunity. People will disturb you. That's a given. That's always going to happen. People do it all the time. It's not just you. They do it to everyone. It just happens to all of us. It's just the way the world is. But these are all opportunities. Okay, so Krishna has given me an opportunity. So someone did not treat me well. What am I going to do? Well, I could be understanding. Maybe they're having a hard day. I could still be kind, even though they're not kind. I could just let it go. I could do so many things, or I could fight back. I could even be worse than they are. Yes? So we have a question. If the Siksha Guru behaves insensitive, does not manage to maintain a beautiful relationship with other disciples, how to react? I do not feel good. Difficult question. I could get in trouble for answering this question. Let me try to answer it in a way where I won't get in trouble. It may have to do with expectations. So, what were your expectations for that Siksha Guru? And maybe the Siksha Guru, in the way he's dealing with these other disciples, is actually good for them, and you don't see it that way. So you may not feel good because you see they're hurt, but maybe they would be worse off if he didn't deal with it that way. He didn't deal with him that way. Or maybe, well, he's the Siksha Guru. So, if you're really, really upset and it's causing you to make offense, it's probably better that that relationship doesn't continue, because you don't want to be offensive. Another thing you have to understand is that not every guru is going to have these beautiful relationships in terms of how you define beautiful. Because he's trying to get someone out of Maya by speaking the philosophy and addressing their anarthas in a way that he feels is best. But maybe the disciple doesn't perceive it as best, or maybe you don't perceive it as best. So your concept of how you want the guru to be may be different from his concept of how of the kind of guru he is, or the way the guru should be, or it also may be in terms of limitation. Like, for example, we're having a workshop this weekend, and it's about health. So most of the people that are coming are my godbrothers and godsisters, because we're older, so we have more health issues. Very few young people came, more older people. So there's one godbrother that's there, and he's very, very shy, very reserved, and so like when you see him, he kind of doesn't really notice you, or tries not to notice you, and kind of ignores you, and never talks to you, and just kind of keeps in his own world. So that could make me think there's something wrong with him, or there's something wrong with me, or could think so many things. But the fact is, he's just really shy, and he's always been shy, and it has nothing to do with not liking devotees or any animosity towards anyone. He has a difficult time relating to people. It just doesn't, he stays by himself. He doesn't interact. That's just how he is. So if I didn't know that, I would think, oh, he's not very nice. Why is he ignoring people? Why isn't he talking to people? Does he not like them? So every individual guru also has their nature, and some gurus' nature is to be more extroverted, more sensitive, more caring, and some gurus' nature is to just be very strict, and they don't value relationships in the terms that you value them. And in some cases, you may just need to talk to them and say, this is the problem I'm having. I see you in a certain way, and I would expect you to be another way, and I feel bad, and so on. So if you feel you can talk, then you can talk. If not, just see that he sees things, his sense of what's good is maybe different than yours. Is it good to do services, whether they become deficient, or at least do I serve, but do it well? You do your duty, but it's better to do services you do well if you have a choice. But if you don't have a choice, then you do your best. Krishna Karshani says, I noticed if people are disturbing us, in most cases we are the problem, so maybe a better solution is to find the root cause of why we feel disturbed or offended. Yeah, that could be. Not always. Yeah, but sometimes we're disturbing them. It's always a good place to start. I don't like someone's action. Did I have anything to do with it? Are they initiating the action, or are they responding to something I said or did? Nilananda. Prahlad Maharaj is a great example of simultaneously displaying humbleness and assertiveness. Yeah. Yeah, you need both. So the point, the problem is, for us sometimes, when we're assertive, we give up being humble. When we're humble, we give up being assertive. And sometimes we have to be both. This is how I feel, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is what we must do. But I present it humbly, this is my humble opinion. What is your opinion? How do you see it? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Is there anything we can do to make it better? So that's being humbly and assertive. And humility is also, humility is part of being cultured. So you need to be assertive, but humility is to present it in a way that I don't think that everything I do and say is right, necessarily right. What do you think? Would you consider this? Do you believe this is true, what I'm saying? I think so-and-so did something wrong, or I think so-and-so is mistreating us. Actually, I think if I do this, I didn't plug in the mic. You won't hear the button so much now. I think so-and-so should do this, or I think so-and-so should do that. What do you think? Or I see devotees are being affected by this. I don't think this is right. What do you think? That's a cultured way. So you have assertiveness, but it's balanced by the humbleness of culture. What I see a lot of times with us Westerners is we have the assertiveness without the culture. And then it creates like a toxic situation. So it's, we have to balance it. We're not mushrooms growing in the dark, and we're not if you see a problem, you see it. You definitely saw the problem. This is not right. Someone's being mistreated, or something wrong was said in a class, or whatever. And you may be in a position to talk about it, but the humbleness is the culture of which how you present it. It may even be that you come humbly to authority and say, I don't know how to present this because I saw something wrong, and I don't want to criticize, and so I don't want to create any kind of toxic and dysfunctional environment, but this was done, and it has to be dealt with, I think. What do you think? So you're coming humbly. You're not coming, that I'm right and everything's bad. And that's more of the Western mood, the revolutionary mood. This has to stop, so on and so forth. I realized short ago, I think it means a while ago, I was the cause of disturbance in a group. I realized I was being pulled my back of love to myself and showing to others. I was more important than them. It's painful. Good realization. But I see and feel better now. You'll always feel better when you do the right thing. No doubt about it. Carla says we should be very careful with our words and actions and how this one may affect others around us. Yeah. Now, the thing is, we don't always know how our words and actions affect others. I have this experience, and I'm not rationalizing this, it's not my fault. But some people are very sensitive. I'm not so sensitive. So sometimes I'll say something which I just feel like is necessary for a person to hear, or it was just in jest. It wasn't really serious. We're just having fun. But the person may not take it that way. Or the intensity of the problem that I'm pointing out in my mind is 10%. The way the person accepts it is they feel it was like 100%. I'm saying it's 100% their fault. I'm saying, no, probably next time better we do it this way. Oh, you mean everything's my fault? No, I just do it this way. So I'm coming from a certain place where if someone told me do it this way, I go, yeah, that makes sense, we'll do it that way. Where someone else is identifying it as a failure on their part and so on and so forth. So it is necessary, as far as we are able, to be sensitive to what we might say. Now, I have a problem. And one of the problems I have, and I was actually dealing with it yesterday at the workshop, is that some people express themselves and their emotional challenges in a way that I feel like these are not, it's not really that important that you go there. It's not really important that you dwell on these things. There are other things that are more important for you to focus on. And that's really bad because what they're talking about is important for them. I don't see it as important because it's not important for me. And I think in the long run, it may not be useful for them to dwell on these things. But I can't judge that because it may be very useful. And the fact that they're talking about it does mean it's useful for them because they need to talk about it and express it. And sometimes I think, but you're a devotee. Why would you be dwelling on this? It's very selfish. It seems all about you and how you feel. But that I have to respect them and their feelings because they're trying to process their feelings so they can do better devotional service. But from my perspective, I think, oh, you're wasting your time, this is very selfish and so forth. So I understand that I'm seeing things from my perspective or my emotional components are different. I just, what's the problem? Why, don't worry about it. So sometimes it is a problem and I might say, don't worry about it. And so that person shouldn't worry about it, and it would be good if they didn't worry about it, but they'll take it as me being very insensitive. So that's one thing to be aware of. The other thing to be aware of is that we may not be aware at all how our words affect people, and we have to somehow or other kind of notice. It's just like we said something which we would have no idea would affect anybody, and now it's affecting them. And so we know these people, and we're seeing them become affected, and it's like, okay, so you're affected by this. I have to accept it. I think you shouldn't be affected, but that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the fact that you are affected. I wish you weren't affected. I don't think you should be. I wouldn't be affected by it. The next door neighbor wouldn't be affected by it, but the reality is you're affected by it. I have to acknowledge that. And so sometimes I find this very challenging because I kind of live in a world of, well, this is what Shastra says, this is what Krishna consciousness says, and this is what it isn't. And some people are allowing themselves to be affected in ways I think a devotee shouldn't be affected. And sometimes I'm not sensitive enough to that. Okay, let's acknowledge they are affected. Okay, they're not pure devotees. They are affected. This is just where they're at. Let's be sympathetic. Let's be empathetic. It's just a reality. Rather than make a judgment, well, I know you feel this way, but you shouldn't. Because that doesn't work. So I'm committing guilt here. And you might say, oh, Mahatma Prabhu, I've never seen you like that. Maybe you haven't seen me like that. Maybe you don't perceive me like that. Maybe I'm good at controlling it, means I don't say anything, and I really try to empathize and understand. But a lot of times inside, while I'm trying to empathize and understand, I'm thinking, you shouldn't feel this way. This is not good. And if on occasion I do say some things like that, sometimes it can hurt people. And as we're reading here, it can be dangerous if you're a spiritual master and you hurt people, because they depend on your affection and kindness, and if they feel you don't like them, that could devastate them. So yes. Nitai Gauranga Kijai Sundara says it's good to do several services. Once, no, we did that question. Always do You have to do what you have to do with your service, but whatever you do, do it well. And if you are not doing some services well and you create problems by doing those, it's probably better to avoid them if you can. If we expect people to treat us a certain way and be sensitive about our needs, we might be disappointed. Not might, you will be, most likely. Yeah. Depends what you expect. If you expect certain things, you'll be disappointed 100% of the time. People are different. Some are sensitive, some are rude. It's not that we should make ourselves strong. It's just, like sometimes we expect someone to act in a way that either by their position they shouldn't act in relation to you, it's not their position to act that way, or by their nature they wouldn't act, because everyone has different natures. And some people are extremely independent, they like to be alone and reclusive, and you're expecting them to be social. They're not going to be. Some people are very sensitive, like they can understand everybody. Whatever the problem is, they understand it. Some people can't. Some people, you try to explain your problem to some people, they'll bash you. They'll shoot you down. And some people just listen, they understand, I feel so bad about it. And so the problem is, we would expect a devotee would be sympathetic, understanding, social, and so forth, but not every devotee is going to be that. We all have our nature. Even on the stage of pure devotional service, you still have a certain nature inherent. You'll be more sensitive, you'll be more kind, you'll have all these good qualities, but a certain nature may be there, where you're very hard, you're very heavy, very strict, very traditional, whatever it is. And so to expect something else becomes a problem, because that person at this point in their life cannot act in any other way. And you've all seen this. You wish somebody would act in a different way. And they can't. They don't. It's not who they are. It's just, they can't act any other way. It's just not who they are. And so once you accept that, everything's good. So now I'm supposed to be at a workshop right now. I'm not giving it, but I'm supposed to be there now and haven't eaten breakfast, so I really have to go. And it's going to take 7 minutes to get there. So I would like your permission to leave tomorrow at 6:15 Eastern Standard Time, 8:15 Australian time, and sometime everywhere else. Maybe like 11:15 in London, and 12:15 in Amsterdam, and 1:15 in Poland or Ukraine or something like that. And maybe like 3:15 in India. We're going to have a class about Gunnar Maharaj. We're going to go more deeply because we never finished that. And I want to do justice to him. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gauranga Nityananda.